Hello, hello, and hello. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's Talking Stick Show. So, I'd firstly like to welcome our incredible guests. So, we have the great and the powerful Laura Massey. Hello, Laura.
Hi, Dale.
How are we doing today?
Great. I think anybody who's got here who's overcome the time difference has done really well because we've lost a few people in the void somewhere.
Yes, we've lost a few people. A few people are lost in time with the time changes over in America. So we've lost a few people. But incredible and great to have you on, Laura.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Thank you, sister. And we have the great, the powerful, the comedian. We have Trent. Hello, brother.
How we doing? How we doing?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Wonderful.
Good. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. And we have the one and only Lily War. Hello, Lily.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
And thank you for coming on. It's great to have you on. This is the first time Lily has come onto the show, so we welcome her with open arms.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. It's a warm welcome.
And we have the great Amy Kruzik. Hello.
Hello, thank you for having me on today. Hey,
Thank you for
everyone.
coming on. And we were just talking about before of the great work you've been doing lately and the effort and the discipline you've had and how it's showing. It's an honor to have you on, sister.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for that.
And thank you, Amy. And we have in the background somewhere, we have Martina Rubula. Hello, Martina, wherever you are hiding out there.
Hi guys, yes, I'm hiding because I think the topic is mystical, right? So I'm gonna remain mystical today, hiding behind my technical incapacities, you know, not being able to get another fucking picture going.
Yeah. It's a great honor to have you on, Martina. You came on the show around about 6-7 months ago, so thank you for coming back on.
No, great stuff. Thanks.
In your mystical guise.
Exactly.
So what are we going to talk about today? So we've got a lot of people on, got all you wonderful experts on. Laura, do you want to take it away, what we're talking about today?
Ooh, mystical, magical experiences that may or may not have changed our life, but something that's happened to us that maybe we didn't remember until we were older. Talking of myself, looking back from being a child and remembering later and thinking, why did that happen? I'm sure everybody's got at least one mystical, magical story. Anybody like to kick off?
Yes. And that's it. And it's those mystical, magical moments we all have and we can all share in this space. And I was excited when I was speaking to Laura about the subject matter for this show, because I really enjoy hearing about people's experiences. And through people's experiences and stories, it can give us great healing and great inspiration about our own journeys. Some of the greatest stories of the ancestors passed on to us. There's those tales of the grandfathers, the grandmothers, where they give you a story when they were younger, and there's so much healing within that story because it's all of the way they see the world. And this is the importance of this Talking Stick show, passing the stick to each and every one of you today to hear your story in non-competition, non-hierarchical order. So who would like to start? And I'll pass the talking stick to you. So who would like to volunteer firstly?
Okay, I'll go first. So I think Amy probably remembers. You remember the big scare about the spotted lanternflies?
Yes.
Okay, so that happened to me, and I was like, what is up with these spotted lanternflies, right? And because everybody said, they're killing the trees. It was like some big thing about being an invasion here in PA. And, at first I believed it. Well, after I like stepped on a couple of them, I like felt bad, and I didn't even feel right about killing these bugs. So I'm like, all right, I have to like find out what is the relationship between the spotted lanternfly and the trees. Like it has to be deeper than that. So, a couple times like they kept coming to me, Like I remember one time I was downtown and I was like on this bench, and one of them came up on the bench and just sat there and like looked at me, and they have these little beady red eyes. They do look like aliens. And I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to tell me? Well, one day I was in the woods with Amanda, and we were kind of like going through our own thing, and she went one way, and I'm like, all right, I have to go. I'm going on a quest to find the relationship between the spotted lanternflies and the trees. So as I was going back into the woods, like all this programming started coming up, like all this fear programming was coming up. And I like started getting scared of like being in the woods by myself. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? So, I start talking myself through it, speaking out loud. Andrew teaches us about speaking out loud, empowering ourselves. And right after I did that, I found a feather. I found a hawk feather. So I kept going, and it happened again. Fear programming popped up. And, something was telling me, like, oh, they're going to suck the information out of your brain. Like, do not go to the lanternflies. Like, they are going to harvest your mind and all the information. They're going to like try to take over your mind and all this BS, right? So I start doing another ceremony, speaking, revoking like all the fear programming, the whole thing. Right after that, I found a turkey feather on the ground. And I'm like, holy shit, like, what is going on? So I keep going, right? And it happened again. And that was when this was kind of like my initiation to like really like remember who I was, because the other stuff that I was doing, it was only working temporarily. So I immediately, like, I kicked it in fucking high gear, and I did a whole ceremony. I start flapping these feathers. I had one in each hand, right? And I was like, really, I was kicking up the heat, right? And I was working with the elements at that time, and the dragons were coming through like really strong for me. So I started spinning in a circle, and I was flapping my two feathers like a giant hawk, right? Like a giant bird. And I start going through each one of the elements. Like I was breathing fire, like I was breathing water fire, then I was breathing earth fire and air fire and regular fire. And I was just spinning in a circle. And then all of the elements combined. And it was like this like rainbow pearlescent, like it was really hard to explain, but it was freaking awesome, like all the elements combined. And I was just blowing this like rainbow fire like all around, right? And I eventually I went up to this giant tree. It was covered in lantern flies, and well, basically I found out that the the relationship between them was they were just passing through. Like they wasn't here to like kill all the trees or everything like that. It was basically like the tree was providing a home for them, like a safe passing to get through. And I realized that like the relationship between them wasn't as important as me going on the quest to find out who I truly was. So that was my mystical experience.
Incredible, brother. Has anybody got any more questions for Trent about his story? Does anybody want to ask him something about that?
That is just a beautiful story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
And they are beautiful bugs. They are beautiful. The red was like a red you've never seen before. They have these red
Yeah.
spots on them. If you remember, they look like a moth. Their wings look like a moth with these spots. They in black, like blue, like red and black. They're very pretty.
Yeah, they have these tiny little red eyes, and they are
Yeah.
creepy. But whenever
Yeah.
they fly, like the
They
wings that
jump.
they have under their regular wings are just so vibrant and
Oh,
beautiful.
yeah.
And I actually did go back up to a few of the trees that they were staying at and the trees are still living. So anybody that says they're killing trees,
Yeah.
no, they're not.
No. I mean, people
Stop switching
had,
up.
and people put on sticky tape. People had sticky tape around their tree trunks to capture
Yeah.
them. Yeah.
You know, the only thing that it does is it leaves a little bit of residue, like a black residue on the tree, but it doesn't affect the tree.
We've got a
So-
question here from Michelle Thomas. Could you actually see the colours with your naked eyes, Trent?
Oh, what the colors of the fires?
Yes.
Yes, I did, and it was beautiful. Like I said, I went through each one of the elements like I was like a bird dragon breathing out this fire, and it was water, air, earth, regular fire, and then they all merged into this like pearlescent rainbow chrome flame, and it was just like, holy fuck.
Wow.
And how does the story affect you now then from before? So say it was fresh in your memory and you're processing the actual experience. What does it feel like now for you speaking that today?
So it was really empowering for me, you know, because at the time I was dealing with a lot of fear programming, you know, doubt in myself, not believing in my power and my potential, and you know, just a lot of programming was going on. You know, I forgot who I was, and that was kind of like my initiation to remember who you are, remember your power, and the fear is an illusion. You know, because I was perfectly fine the whole time. And you know, it's important for us to remember that, you know, a threat isn't a threat until it's an immediate threat. You know, because a lot of times we create these scenarios inside our head and try to prepare for things that hasn't happened yet, and more than likely will never happen yet. So it taught me to be empowered. It taught me to be more in the moment and trust in myself, and that fear is an illusion until it becomes an immediate threat.
Trent, I was
Beautiful.
going to say it's so beautiful that you started that experience with basically trusting Gaia, that there are no invasive species, that she is in control, and nothing can be invasive or damaging, that there's like a higher trust you can have. And from that initial trust in these insects are meant to be there, you then had this beautiful, powerful journey afterwards. And it's just a really nice reminder to all of us that we can be, you know, have these little worms put into us of thoughts that things could be invasive, things are dangerous, nature's dangerous. But actually, if we just trust and try and see the beauty in each of these things, elements in nature, then there's so much wisdom in there. And like you said, most people are crushing these bugs, and you had this huge medicine experience. It's so beautiful.
Yes, it
Yeah.
was awesome. It was amazing. And just like you said, you know, we think everything is wrong or this or that, but you know, Gaia is got things under control. That doesn't
You
mean go out
innately
and
knew
throw
that.
the bottles on the ground. Stop littering.
But you just innately knew that, didn't you? Somewhere
Well-
in your deep knowingness was that, and you were an allowance, which allowed that mystical experience to unfold, I think.
Yes, it was a process of trust and belief. Even if I didn't see it at first, inside I knew, you know, and it turned out to be an epic journey, an epic quest.
Yeah, I love the way you flip the frequencies on the fear as well. Because if you're in fear, you're just not going to get these experiences in quite the same way, are you?
Absolutely.
You know.
Incredible.
Yeah,
And anything... Sorry, Amy, I was
Yeah,
going to bring
I
you
do.
in then. You and Martina in then.
Oh yeah. What I saw too, Trent, when you were talking about that covered the whole tree, it was like all your aspects came to see you.
All the shards of myself.
Yeah, like, and you didn't crush them, you know, you wanted to see them. That's how I saw that when you were telling the story, and you brought in this beautiful fire and this beautiful colors, and you know, that's how I saw it.
And it's kind of like a good metaphor to go to these past versions or future versions of ourselves with the same courage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I'm ready to see you, and I see you.
I love that term. I see you.
I see you.
It's an avatar term, but I love it.
That's where I got it from.
Yes, I see you.
Making an impact, though.
Yes. I always
So
message
Shane-
Trent saying I see you just randomly. Martina,
Yeah, you do that.
anything to add there?
Yeah, Shane is asking, where did they come from?
Well, I believe that they came from somewhere in Asia,
Mm-hmm.
but they got over here somehow. I don't know if they were planted. I don't know if they were just migrating, but maybe a combination of both.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible, brother. Martina, your internet seems to be really low, so I don't think you're going to be able
Low?
to. Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh.
It says you've got. For some
What
reason, it
is
says you've
going
got a
on?
really low connection, but I can hear you just fine. How strange. So,
What is
anything
going
to add to that, Martina?
Yeah, as long as my sound works. So, do you know what? What you were just saying, Trent, is that magic that is unfolding, you know, and what we have called mystical maybe a couple of years ago, a couple of months ago, is actually turning into the norm now. And I think this is the interesting thing, how it's so good to talk about the mystical and the unusual, the unexplained to be happening. But in reality, we're getting to a stage where we can very much start to explain it all. And it's been so, you know, when I saw the topic, I went for lunch today with a friend of mine. And I've met the guy, 12 years ago. In the networking, when I was still networking, and we get together maybe 2-3 times a year, and we always have a chat and see, so where you at, what you're doing, and things like that. And we've been having this conversation. I'm talking to him about the veil is lifting, and and he tries to keep up as much as he can, and I'm just telling you, everything is going to be so magical and everything, and instant manifestation and la la la, and he was making notes, and yeah, great. Now, the next thing is, we're almost finished. We're having a coffee. The next thing is, there's a guy comes up to us, stands next to us, and says, so how long have you guys been together? And we both look at each other and say, well, we've known each other. And, Norm says, well, for 12 years now. Okay. So how many children do you have? But it was really interesting. It wasn't intrusive, interestingly enough. It wasn't, there was something going on. He must have been on the spectrum or something, But we were both open to that kind of conversation. So he carries on, so how old are you? And, very flattering. He gave us, 10 years off each, perfect. And then, and then he just walks away. And didn't say goodbye, didn't say anything. He just came in and walked away. And I said to my friend, I said, so let's look at this. What was that? Because something just happened here, I said, what did this guy see that we haven't actually acknowledged yet about our relationship, our friendship here? And then we were both looking back and said, what century are we actually in right now? And we sat in a pub. Yeah, so it was a perfect setting. I said, what century were we in when this guy actually saw us? And we said 15th, 16th century. And it was like, and I said to my friend, I said, you know what just happened? This guy saw us as a couple in a different time. Different timeline, different dimension, in a past life or something. But it was, and he totally understood that, even though he's not, it's a bit difficult for him to go into all of that, but he totally got that. And it was such a gift, because all of a sudden we could really perceive us being together as a couple. And I don't even know, I don't think it was it's not a romantic couple. We were friends. And then the other thing that came through from a mystical perspective, because he's Scottish and he loves Robert Burns, the poet. And I don't really know anything about Robert Burns, but wherever I go to a charity shop or to a market, I find something that is either a cup with Robert Burns's bloody head on, or and all of that. And I bring it to him, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" And I don't even know this guy, this Robert Burns, right? And it just made me realize something that I had never thought before. The relationship that I have with this friend of mine, and this is also why we just clicked when we first met, and why the relationship just went on. And even though we only meet twice a year, there is something going on. And this guy who came up with that little spectrum thing going on, he just totally pointed it out to us. And the one thing, I said to my friend, I said, you know what, we could totally disregard this now and say, oh, well, what an idiot, and why does he come up, and blah, blah, blah. Or we could just sit back, acknowledge that, and be really grateful. And that's what we did.
Incredible.
Absolutely.
And it felt like he might have been reading the situation and reading obviously that lifetime. I love that. Especially people on the spectrum. My son is picks up on things and he'll just say it out loud. And I'm like, wow. He'll just be thinking of something and there'll be something going on and he'll just shout it. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
And it's incredible, Martina, you being able to see that. And just meeting people and that interaction, you can seeing the mystical side of these experiences and relationships and how we come together naturally.
I think this is what it is now, the pattern recognition. The pattern recognition is so much in our face, and it's a manifested thing. So lots of people feel that they can't see or hear something or can't channel. But if you just take the physical patterns and put them together, you make that story out of it. And then the story becomes that feeling, and you can feel it in your heart center. And that is enough. That is your confirmation that this thing is real, even though nobody else understands it. It's absolutely fine.
Absolutely.
Has anybody got anything to ask Martina about that experience?
Yeah, I just
Anything
want
you
to
want to
comment that, the fact that you were open to that, because, the average person, they would just blow it off. If their heart wasn't open, they would just be like, oh, well, that was weird, and never pay any mind to it or second guess it. But the fact that, your heart was open enough to go and dig a little bit deeper in that's how we start connecting synchronicities. And that's how we gain insight off of these things that happen that are coincidences that are actually synchronicities.
Yeah.
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 I've had a similar thing like that too happen, Martina. And it really did open my eyes. It was with my brother. And this girl says, how long have you two been together? My brother, he said, we've been together 65 years, he's 65. So it's funny. But, it's like I got it. But I, like you, I thought we did have a life. I never thought that I had another lifetime with my brother. But now it's like we had that lifetime together. But I wanted to ask you, yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I wanted to ask Martina, did it change your perception on your friend, like going forward with him? Does it?
No, no, it didn't change my perception at all. But I was just, with all the things that we know, there's always this little blind spot. I mean, we always know that we reincarnate with, the same people over and over again. And, we even say, look, yes, I'm sure we had a lifetime together. But today, this guy came in with an energy that all of a sudden made it so crystal clear. And he didn't do anything. He didn't talk about it. He just stood there and said, so how long have you known each other? And that was all he said. It was his energy, his beingness, his total clarity of asking the question. There was no smile on his face. There was no aggression with it. There was nothing. It was just like, guys, you've never thought about this, hey? You've had a life together. And I'm like, shit, yes. And the one thing, I never really looked at this Burns guy, this Robert Burns, being such a connection, because this must have been the time when we actually knew each other, or at least one of those lifetimes. So does that answer the question? I can't remember what
it's almost like why I always go to like, well, why did he ask us this question? Like, what is it that I need to understand about this? That's what I guess my question is. What did you get, not from that experience?
No, that's a great question. For me, it was, there is so much more mystery behind everything that we haven't acknowledged yet. Still, even if we say we have a certain level of consciousness or awareness, there is still a blind spot behind all of that. And there is so much more to be unearthed. And the other thing is definitely, because it was the two of us, there was a huge lesson for my friend, because he's still questioning what I'm saying. He loves hearing it, but that's, I think, why we only meet twice a year, because he can only listen for 2 hours and then needs half a year to
processing time.
And he's also he's a grandfather now, so he's having two little babies actually. And I've said to him, you're so lucky. You're so lucky to work with these youngsters now, because they will say things as soon as they can talk, or even without being able to talk. They will give you an understanding. And when you're open to this, he's a mentor and all of that, is that they will become your mentor, those youngsters. And the more we can work with those young people now, the more, the luckier we are, really. Because they really getting this new era of light that we are moving into.
Incredible. And you even thought about the past life you'd have with the boy saying it as well. What he was coming in and tangling with to fix. Wow. Yeah. I love that. That's really cool, Martina. Really cool story. Yeah. And that was today, was it?
Well, that was today, because, instant manifestation, I thought, fuck, what am I going to say? Which stories can I bring up? And here we go. Lunchtime it was, and here's the story.
The universe gave you your story. There you go, Martina. Have it with lunch on the side. Wow. So who would like to go next? Lily, would you like to go next and share one of your life-changing mystical experiences?
Sure. I just wanted to say for Martina as well, I think your story kind of reminded me of the fact that when you choose to see wisdom in all things, that's when your life becomes more mystical and you have mystical experiences. And that's really such a beautiful example of that, is that you can, then you start to see all of your experiences, these golden threads that you can have so much wisdom from. Even the mundane can become these incredible teaching moments. And that's when your life becomes so much more enriched and so beautiful. And I just recommend that everyone does that, because it makes your life so much more beautiful and multi-layered.
Beautifully put, Lily. And just quickly before you share your story, something I forgot to add, but you just reminded me, Lily, was I had a past life regression session on myself. A lady did it on me today, and I had my nan who came in, and she was my wife in one of my lifetimes. Wow. She passed away. It was so random. I was like, looked over and I was like, Nan. Anyways, moving on. Lily, take it away.
That's so funny. When Dale got up that we were going to share some more missing experiences, I kind of wanted to share a couple of my most joyous and most healing mystical experiences, and they were in my birth experiences of both of my sons. So from conception, my pregnancy and my birth, there was just hundreds of mystical experiences through all of that was so transformative, and I can't say all of them here because it would be the whole time. But basically, when my first son, when I went into labour with him, he was a little bit premature, and my natural birth wasn't going to happen. So it was quite a difficult experience in that time, and I had to go into hospital, and I had lots of heart monitors on me and drips and lots of wires coming out of me for different things, and they were about to put in the induction medication that makes your labour speed up. And in that moment, I knew that I had to shed like a lot of fear to be able to like go through this experience, like just keep going. And I had this incredible visionary experience of Vishnu coming and becoming my body, and all of the wires that were coming out of me, all of the monitors, all of the drips, they all became his arms. And it was this incredible experience in the hospital of this like deity like coming into my body and being shown the power, and Vishnu himself telling me, all of these things are here to help you and heal you. Don't be afraid of all of these arms. All of these arms are here to help you. All of these nurses are healers, maybe in a different guise to what you're used to, but embrace them and bless the induction medication. So in that moment, I took the medication they were about to put into me, and I decided in that moment, I said, this will be medicine. I will not be afraid of you, and I take you into my body. I choose to take you into my body. So and then the rest of the labour happened, and my baby was born, and we were all healthy. But that was so beautiful and so unexpected as well, because I don't have any real link to Vishnu or the Indian gods that I knew of at the time. So that was my first son. My second son, I had another experience. I was in the very painful part of later labour, active labour, and I was having thoughts in my head of, whoa, I don't know if I can cope with this. This was at home. I didn't have any like pain relief or anything, and I was getting to that point that I think they call it's the point that a lot of women go through where they think they can't carry on in labour. And in that moment, I suddenly looked up in this kind of liminal state, and I saw right in front of me 7-foot Jesus standing in the room. And I made myself laugh because I said, I thought your mum was going to come. Why are you here?
Mary, where are you, love?
She was all around me, and she would be my person. So I accepted him straight away, and I was like, why are you here, Jesus?
Fuck off, Jesus.
And I remember he said he gave me this message of basically, I won't take away your pain, but I will sit with you in your pain as your brother. And that was such a beautiful medicinal message. And in that moment, it was like I could cope with this pain because I was supported. And I was meant to experience that pain as well. So he didn't take it away from me. He just sat with me. And again, I went on to have a beautiful home birth with my second son. But those are the two mystical experiences at this point in my life that have been the most beautiful, most transformative, and most surprising, I guess. Both in those like very liminal spaces of birth. You know, you're in between worlds. So you're very open to those kinds of visions, I think. But yeah, thank you for hearing my stories, guys.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. And anyone wants to ask Lily about that experience?
I think Lily, you already mentioned that when you are in labor, you're a little bit between worlds, isn't it? Because, and I think that really poses the question: how much of suffering is actually useful? Because we always think suffering is useless, but really, I mean, I think we as humanity have been learning through suffering, and I think suffering, especially I think in childbirth, obviously takes us beyond the physical realms, where everything just is so less identified. And I think this is really where the mystical experience, what we still call mystical at this stage, but where the mystical experience has become the norm when we get out of this identification phase, out of this judgment, bias, prejudice, we're just, even if you are with the pain, but you're really with it, you really drop into that pain without identifying with it anymore, because you just become the pain. And this is when those possibilities show up. And this is a superb, I think, teaching for us to even practice, to not try to get out of suffering all the time, and to start almost enjoying pain, but more from an intellectual level, to understand the potency of it and work with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it taught me as well to not patronize other people and try to take away their pain, but the power in sitting with another and saying, I'll sit with you in your difficulty and I won't judge that. I won't try and take it away or heal it. I'll just sit with you, and I know that you have the power to find your way through that, because that's what I really learned from that, was that I'm okay to be in this level of pain, and I can go through this battle knowing that I'm supported, and no one's saying, oh, like, poor you. No one was saying poor you. It was like, yeah, you're in pain, you're meant to be in pain, it's part of the journey, and you'll get through it. And that's such an important thing to remember when you're supporting other people as well, I think.
And it
Absolutely.
reminds me of the have you heard of the Native American sun dance? So the Native American sun dance is a process where they would get a big tree and the men would go and basically get hooks and put these hooks into their skin, and they'd probably get about 20 different hooks wrapped into the skin, and they'd stand without food and water for, I think it was 4 or 3 days. And they basically, because they saw the women as going through that pain, that their births and stuff like that, the men had to do that in rites of honor to the women. So they had to go through 4 days, 5 days of pain. And through that was a process and a sacred process to a lot of Native American clans. So there is that art of suffering, really, even though sometimes it is obviously imprinted in karma, retribution onto us, which isn't good, but sometimes it's necessary for our greater growth to really feel the touch of the infinite after, where you go, holy fuck, I'm here, I've done it, I feel fucking great after. How do you feel now speaking about that story, Lily? What does it do for you in this today?
It was really lovely actually remembering both of them, because I hadn't sort of thought about both of those instances and both of the births really and put them next to each other. But I see now from that what I really took from that is that, wow, I'm really supported all the time, and even in great difficulty there is support there. And it was just that in those liminal spaces I was able to really see and have a very kind of dramatic experience in that liminal space. But even in less extreme scenarios, there is that support network of the unseen that is absolutely there to give you what you need in that moment. And it made me feel, it's made me feel very comforted, actually. Yeah.
What a manifestation. What a manifestation. And showing that pain is a gateway to greater understanding.
I also think it's a really good lesson in how to hold space properly. Because, my relationship's definitely been a journey, and I had to learn how to hold space properly, because, whenever your partner is going through this or that, a lot of times we'll have the answers. Sometimes we think we have the answers and we don't, but we want to help. And, sometimes our help is, giving advice or, making recommendations of things they can change. But sometimes they just need you to be there. They just need you to be the foundation for them in the chaos. And I believe that's what Jesus was doing for you, providing you safe space and comfort so that you can go through your chaotic process. And it's definitely a lesson in how to hold space properly for any relationship.
Yeah, certainly. I think after that happened, I had a moment as well where I held onto my midwife while my husband ran the water. And I remember her holding me, and she had no baggage of her own. She was just holding me in this with her strong arms. She didn't bring anything else to the table but her arms. And I remember thinking, this is so pure, and this is such a gift that you're just holding me. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That's beautiful.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you, Lily, for remembering that we can't take people's pain away. We Jesus was there for you to say, I'm not taking it from you. Like, this is your experience. I mean, that was just so beautiful as a remembering for me, that we always want to rescue or, help a little child that's, in pain, even though it's a little cut, they're in pain. But they have to experience that. How do they learn from that? You learn from the experiences. Like, what did you learn taking that, like, moving forward from that for you? When you saw Jesus and he came to you and said, I'm not taking the pain from you, how did that change maybe motherhood? Maybe did that change something for you, like with your children?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, it strengthened my capacity, I think, my capacity to cope with different elements of life. That experience for me, it was like having that reflection of, you can cope with this. This is so intense. This is the most amount of pain. You couldn't even imagine this much pain could exist in your body, but you can cope, and I trust you, and I'm calm when I say that to you. And because it was a heart communication. In my heart, I felt all of that. So that feeling has stayed in my body since, because it was a heart note, it was like a DNA knowing. And so it was kind of like a relaxing into that process, that initiation. It was, I feel like that's, childbirth is hard because motherhood is hard. So it's like the first thing of cracking you open and showing you how far you can push yourself. It's like you can do that. No matter how birth goes, no matter what your experience is, it's always an initiation. It's always a big hurdle that you have to move forward to birth yourself as a mother, because it's a birthing of the mother and the child and a father at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
And the beautiful of sacrifice at times, and sometimes in life we do have to have a sacrifice. It's not giving a lamb or putting a sacrifice down to Odin, but I mean in the terms of having we have sacrifices through our lives where we give our pain, and we go through those rites of passage. And what a great story, Lily, to have that as part of the birthing process as well, and seeding that new life which has come into your life from that experience. So it's becoming ever greater for you with each day passing as your children grow up. There's that experience which will always enrich you and always make you feel comfortable when you look at them.
Thank you, Dale.
Incredible.
Wow.
Has anybody got anything they want to add? Laura, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I did just now. As I say, I think it's an incredible story, a beautiful story that you co-created with the universe. And I loved hearing that. Thank you so much, Lily.
Thank you, Laura.
And we've almost done an hour already. Time has just disappeared. It's been a bit of a weird one with time at the moment, guys.
It's a weird time thing. I love
So
it.
who would like to go next? Amy, I see you're raring to go over there.
Oh yes, raring to go. Well, I don't know where to begin, but Martina has heard this story about my bunnies before. I've shared it on Earth Nouveau, and I feel like, to me, that was so magical with these baby bunnies. It's like Dale's, little, what were they called? Flies. But yeah.
Sorry, say that again. Dale's flies.
No.
Have I got some flies? Where?
Not Dale. I'm sorry.
Trent.
I was going to say
Trent, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
I'm like, not
It's
Dale.
okay. Everybody gets
Sorry.
us mixed up.
You bros. I'll try to make it a little shorter than I was telling on Earth Nouveau, but so there was a nest of bunnies, and my dog brought me a bunny that was like in his mouth, very gentle. It was still pink. It was still like, no fur on it. And I'm like, oh no, where did you get this nest? Like, it needs to go back in its nest, So I'm searching the yard, and I did find it was a shallow nest. So I put the baby back in, and my neighbor's like, I don't know if the mom will come back. I don't know now that you touched it. But I'm like, well, I didn't know what else to do. So a couple weeks later, I put a chicken kind of like a wire where the mother could get in if she needed to get in. But So my dog didn't get it until it was grown 2 more weeks. So he brings me another bunny, and this one has the fur and this one has, and I decided, like, okay, I put it back, but they were still there. All the little bunnies were still there. And I decided to take the bunnies in and give them the nourishment that they needed for this, for this to happen. So, like, for me to do that, that was just so magical. I think I ended up getting some goat's milk to feed. Somebody said get goat's milk and stuff. So I had them for probably about 10 days, and I connected with them, and my dog connected with them. My husband connected with them. They were just the sweetest little things. And I even read revocations to them, like, you're here for me for a reason. I sit and I was reading revocations to them, the heart meditation. So after like the 10th day, I'm like, okay, they're big enough where, they can go run and find their own home. I had 2 of them. So my dog brought me 4, but 2 were dead in his mouth, but he didn't. I don't know if he killed them. I don't think he did. But so there was only 2 out of the 4. So I put them back in the yard and they scurry off, and I had some alfalfa left, so I put alfalfa out for them. And they would come out in the yard and I'd see them feed. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're so cute. Like, we gave them names and everything. And one day I would talk to them because I'd talk to their name, and I'd call to them and I'd try to go. This is the magical part. I walk over to the one bunny, and he let me actually pet him. Like, to me, a wild bunny I just stroked him a couple of times and then he scurried off. And to me, that was like, my heart just like melted, because it was just such a beautiful thing between, like, something in the wild letting me handle them and feed them and take care of them. And then he let me actually, pet him. That was the most magical thing. So that was one of my magical moments. Mystical, magical.
There's a few stories about animals. Have you got any special animal stories, Dale? Positive or negative?
No, you go ahead, bro. Welcome to the show. We welcome Matty Waller to the show.
Yes.
Hello, brother.
Sorry I'm
Maddie.
late, guys. Sorry I'm late. It's a long story. I'll spare it. So I've had a couple. There's a couple that come to mind. So I have to tell the backstory. So there was one point where I'd been a very naughty boy, and I decided to run away and just forget about my troubles. And I went across Wales. And does my mic sound okay, guys? It's super loud in my ears. Is it okay? And I walked across Wales for many, many weeks. And at this point, one of my spirit guides was a hare. And they're quite rare. You do see them around, but they are quite rare. And they're very, very shy. And it was a really difficult day. And I was just standing there, and it was just this big, long meadow. And then this hare just popped out of the hedgerow and just literally just walked straight up to me. And it took ages as well. I just stood there and I was frozen. It came right up to me, looked at me, and turned around and went back the way it came. There's no reason for it,
No reason for it.
And then in the same journey, I was setting up camp at one point, and it was getting to the point where it was getting so late, I had to set up camp. So I was in some woods, but I could see red deer jumping. And that night, as I went to bed, I was packed up, lying in my tent. I just heard this thud, 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 like that. And it was the main stag was coming down to have a word with me in the middle of the night. And he walked all around my tent stamping, going, like that. And I just knew, even if he didn't kill me, he could ruin all my stuff instantly and, create a horrific, few hours for me. And he stomped around and I was just praying. And then in the end, he just walked off and he gave me one last, and off he went.
Oh my
that was
gosh.
like one of those,
Wow.
the wild still exists in the UK somewhere.
Yes,
They're my two funny animal stories, yeah.
Incredible, brother.
I love it. I love it.
Dude, those things are majestic, ain't they? Seeing one that close, face to face.
I was in a tent. That's the worst thing
whoa.
about it. I was in a tent and they were all around me, And there's a certain point in the season where they fight, and they're super dangerous. You mustn't go near them at all.
There was
At
a
that time.
They box.
that reminded me of a time. There's a place called Guyscliffe Woods in North Yorkshire, and it's a really old wood, and it's got loads of stones, moss, like everywhere, and it's a really old English forest, and it's probably my favourite forest around the area. It's like there's something about it. It's very special, and not many people go there. And I was drumming. This was about 7 years ago. I was drumming away, doing a ceremony. I think I had a fire. I'm not 100% sure. I think I did. I had a ceremony anyway in the stones, and all the woodland was all around me. And I was drumming. Then all of a sudden, I drummed, and a deer came right up to me, like 7 foot away, as I was drumming, and it just stared at me. And as I was drumming, I turned around. It was just there, right next to me, and I shut myself a little bit. I was like, "Holy fuck!" I'm there, like drumming. Then I turned around, and the deer's just stood there looking at me. It was like it was attracted to the drumming. Didn't understand it, and it was just attracted to it until it saw me, then got scared. So it was like a natural instinct for it to come where to the drum was. It was really incredible.
Maybe that's why you see some of the shamans wearing some of the shawls and the old, because some of the old ceremonial gear just it doesn't even look like, it's not fancy, is it? It's really kind of, you'd blend in.
Yeah.
Yes. That might be a good idea next time. Get all the moving army shit on. Start drumming. Just my little eyes out the rock, like, hello.
We need cheese, Dale. Bring the cheese.
Yeah, I feel
cheese, yes.
maybe
Not Mr. Blobby.
Mr. Blobby. Maybe the bunny remembered my voice. I'm thinking maybe because I talked to them, I would hold them and talk to them. So I'm wondering if it just remembered my voice and made a connection and let me pet it, like a little bit. Then it got scared and then it ran. But
You read it the heart meditation.
I
didn't you?
did.
Advanced
I
heart
did.
meditation. You're probably the only bunny in the world who's ever had the advanced heart meditation.
I know. And it just felt like the trusting, them trusting me and, me knowing that others can trust, I can trust others, It was like an exchange. I don't know. We had a lot of conversations.
And I think it's just the loving energy and the kind of the you as a heart space being and the animal knew innately that it trusted you. And I think that just shows you what type of character you are.
Oh.
Yeah, 'cause if you think of children's interaction with animals as well.
Yeah.
They're usually very heart-centered, aren't they, when they're younger? I remember once watching, bearing in mind that all the cats I've ever known of chase birds, and I was sat in the bottom of a garden one summer evening, and I was only about 5, and I watched, there was a robin on one side just on a log perched, and a black cat approaching from the right. I knew the cat, and he came up very slowly, and the bird just sat there, and the cat just went right up and sniffed the robin on the chest, touched the robin, and the robin just sat there and then tweeted and flew off. And I'm like, did I just see that?
I know,
because
right?
when you experience things in childhood, for me, I've actually had to tell myself, remember this is true. Remember this is what you saw. Because something in me knew that when I got older, I might dismiss some of the things that my child heart believed. I might get wiped out. But I remember telling myself that when I was that young. Always believe that this happened. Always know that this has happened. Don't be told that it wasn't, because as you grow up, you do get examples, don't you, where adults tell you something didn't happen.
Mm-hmm. I love that, Laura. That's great. That is, and I think the bunny also, it's trust myself, trust this journey, trust where you're going, moving forward. He left, he's gone, he's doing his thing. And I don't know, I just felt that right now as you were saying that. That's really important to know, to tell children that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I seem to have an inner knowingness then, because I went through a phase where I just knew I wouldn't see that animal again, a domestic cat, because it was going to pass on soon. I wouldn't be able to do that now, nor want to do that, but I just somehow innately knew. I used to say goodbye to the animals because I knew I wouldn't see them again the next day, and then they'd pass. So again, that's something I did in my childhood with animals, but it's not something I look to do now.
Yeah.
I love raising. I raised a blackbird, a wild blackbird, that had fallen out of the nest out the front, and we watched it all day long. All the drama unfold, all the cats, all the birds in the street. It was palpable. You could hear it, even in the street. You know, the whole animal community was talking about it. And then I discovered her on a hot road on the sidewalk, and raised her. She was crazy, absolutely crazy. She used to fight with a dog. You know, we had a bull terrier, like a, what you call like a pit bull but smaller, and they used to actually fight. You know, roll around and then one day she just flew away, but then she'd come back every year, and she'd always come right to the back door and make a little jiggle like a dance, and I know it's her. You know,
Wow.
and sometimes she'll make the children come and say hello. Yeah,
That's
cool.
awesome.
I haven't seen her in a while,
that's
but
cool.
I love those little relationships with animals. They're beautiful. It doesn't matter where you are as well. Even people in the city have the little birds that they feed, and the same ones come in their back garden. You know, it's a real sacred connection.
Yeah, I think that also just helps, you know, like this redbird always comes and visits me, and I say to myself, that is the same redbird every day. It's not a different one. Like, I know now that that's the same redbird that visits me. Yeah. From the unseen world. Yeah.
And
I
that's
tell
it.
heartbreaking stories about birds. I've been speaking too much, but you know, I get really attached to them in the back garden and that, and you see them when, you know, and when they have babies, or when the babies are lost, you know, and they come up and tell you when it's happened and stuff, and you know, it's heartbreaking. It's emotional when you live on a piece of land like that and you get tuned into the brutality of what nature can be like, you know, even though you're part of it effectively.
And those messages, when we do see the animals themselves, and they bring us a message of clarity or something we needed in that moment. There was an incident yesterday where I was going to sort out doing my ayahuasca journey at the end of next month. I've got it booked in, and I was umming and ahhing about it. And in a meditation the other day, I had a visualization of my DMT trip a long time ago. I saw the ancestors who visited me come back to me, and innately I knew that I needed to do it. Then I was driving the other day in a Kestrel. I think it was a Kestrel. I was driving in the car and I thought about it, and I said, no, I'll just leave it till the end of next year and I'll get it sorted then. But then a Kestrel flew literally missed my car, and I had to swerve to go to the other side of the room. The wings and the talons were like right in front of my car, and I'm there with the kids in the back going, whoa, shit. And innately I knew it's going to happen today, and you get fucking ready for it, because you're going to have to grab it by the balls. And I got a call from a friend, and he said, we've got availability to book it in for the end of next month. And I booked it in. So that was the Kestrel sent me the message like fucking, shook me up a little bit, gave me a bit of a wash down and a bit of a bath and stuff.
Martina, do you remember the hawk at when we were at Morgan's house?
Yeah.
And it flew, so it actually flew into Morgan's house, didn't it?
That's correct. But what was the story behind it? I can't remember.
Because it was our tool workshop, wasn't it? Our crystal tool workshop.
Yeah, we did the tools,
and it was the frequency that we were all producing at that moment in time, and that it lost where it was.
Wow. Yeah, that's right.
It lost all navigation, didn't it?
Wow.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah. I've had you guys talk about pigeons or birds. I've had very interesting experience with a pigeon dying in the back garden, which is quite unusual because they normally go and die under the bridge or somewhere, you know, not in someone's garden where there are actually two cats. And that was, it was almost like a surrogate for what was happening at the time. So it was Paul's dad was feeling very bad, and he flew down to South Africa to be with him as he was moving on. And that pigeon it must have been a part of him or a surrogate, you know, so that we had the pigeon here, and the cats were sitting there holding space for that pigeon. I have a photograph. It was absolutely amazing. They didn't go there. They didn't want to play with it. They didn't want to attack it. They knew exactly what was going on. And that pigeon was it took hours and hours, and I thought for a moment I had to do something, and I thought, no, who am I to interfere with nature? And I felt really honored that the pigeon had chosen to, you know, spend her last couple of hours in my garden. And I think it was well after midnight when she finally, you know, took her last little breath and flapped her wings out. And I sat next to her, I think, for an hour and cried my eyes out. And she was such an amazing facilitator, facilitating all the pain or whatever pain that was that I had not. Well, actually, I knew exactly what the pain was. It was the pain that, because when I was 11 years old, my grandmother died, and I was the only one in the room, in the house, in fact, and I had taken on quite a bit of the pain and carried it for many, many years. And when that pigeon was dying, you know, I released a lot of that pain that was still stuck in my cells, and just let it all go. So that was they're quite amazing. Yeah.
Imagine the resolution energy of that pigeon when he crosses over, or
Yeah.
she crosses over. She'll be like, "Hey, come with treasure."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you remember Laura, because, you know, Laura being the shaman here, and I said, oh, fuck, what I'm going to do with this pigeon now, dead pigeon, right? I can't throw it in the bin, you know, and I said, Laura, what am I going to do? And she said, okay, no worries at all. You just dig a hole in the back, and the beak needs to go to the west, and the tail needs to... I'm thinking, for fuck's sakes, I don't know where west and east is.
Yeah, I do vaguely remember that.
You
Yeah.
do remember that, yeah? She gave me all instructions what to do and how to do it, and I think, oh, I don't do that.
So what's the directions again, Laura? Is it beak to the
Oh, God,
west,
I have no
tail to
idea.
the... You just made it up on the spot.
I did, but it would have been what was right for that pigeon at that time, and another time for another bird it will be
Well,
something
exactly,
completely
yeah,
different. As you know,
yeah,
whatever algorithm was required at the time for its burial. I do remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, I lost it halfway through and think, no, it's not going to happen. Bless you, in you go. That's it.
Buried him, beak up.
But I do remember on one of the mentorship chats, do you remember when Jesse came across an owl in the woods and he didn't want to touch it? We found out from Andrew that the owl had actually died and gone there so that Jesse could harvest its feathers, and Jesse wouldn't touch it.
Aw.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that. And it was like boiling the feathers and all sorts of things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'd
gosh,
never
yeah.
pass up a dead owl ever.
Hell no.
No, right?
It's interesting. In the chat, Jennifer's, thanks for that, Jennifer, and everybody, by the way, Michelle and Santa, everybody who's joining in the chat. But I like this. Have you read that? A few years ago, she was driving home and saw together in a line next to a stream an owl, a rabbit, and a squirrel.
Oh.
All together?
Incredible.
Yeah, I wonder what they were cooking up.
Well, I think
Yes,
they're
that sounds
teaching
like
us
a
something,
children's
right?
story, doesn't it?
That sound like
How to
There
get
was
their
a
own back on the cat.
There's a story which this has triggered my memory of when my father passed away. I think it was 3 weeks after he died, and I went for a walk, and the sun was setting. You know, there's that beautiful feeling when the sun passes the sacred pipe to the night, and there's that just kind of comforting, isn't there? That feeling when you're on a walk and there's that red sky and everything's there. And I walked. And I walked to the river, and I never see any animals or anything. And there was a deer which ran through the field right next to me as I was walking. Then I went over to this small river, which is a river foss, which isn't far from me. It's tiny, and I've never seen a swan. And as the sun was setting, this swan was coming down the river, and it just glided and looked at me and continued on. And I just burst out crying, because that symbolized to me that now it's on to the next stage. The journey continues on. And the swan just continues on its journey. And that was, for me, that swan came with a message that life continues, and it's just part of the journey. So that was a very, very powerful medicine for me, and an experience that the swan had, and the deer as well.
Dale, I've got a strange story about my dad. So my dad passed away when I was a teenager, And when I was in my 20s, I went to visit his grave to plant some heather on his grave with my husband. And as we were digging the hole to put the plant in, we kind of had a bit of like a dark joke. We're like, oh, I hope nothing comes out the grave kind of thing. At that moment, the earth started moving and we like looked at each other and like literally went pale. And out of the earth, on top of where the head of my dad would have been, came a bumblebee and crawled out across the grass towards my feet. And
Holy
still to this
crap.
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So I looked it up afterwards, and I think those bumblebees are the queens that come out. They like to nest in earth, and they come out in spring to make a new, like to mate for their fertility. So that was crazy. Like still to this day, I'm like, what?
The queens are a master avatar, aren't they? So if you imagine like a soul, there's a hive mind. So you have a master avatar, and then each one is then like the same mind. It's one consciousness. Each hive is one consciousness. You know? So they're very special. And the insects have very special messages. And there's loads of other species that are connect to insects as well. You know?
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I've just learned how to do beekeeping. So
Have
from
you
that,
really? Yeah, oh, so
a long
cool.
time ago. So I'm getting my first bees this year. And when you were talking about drumming and the deer coming, Dale, I remembered that another way to get a swarm down from a tree is to bang a drum or a pan, and it attracts the hive. So it's something to do with that vibration that animals really are affected by.
And that's it. I think they're so in tuned with a natural living. So as we are quite disconnected at times, a lot of times in our day, they're always in sync with the natural rhythms. They're not held in Roman numeral time. Beautiful, Lenny. What a cool story.
Yeah, that's cool.
That was a cool one. That was a weird experience. Yeah, weird experience. Good medicine experience.
Yeah.
And yes, Lana in the chat. You'll have to type it in the chat, but we'd love to know your bird story.
I can put her on if she wants to pop on. I don't mind. I'll send you the link. We'll see if we can get you on. I've sent you the link, Lana, if you want to pop on. Because I think we've got up to 10 people we can get on.
Great.
Which is really cool. Laura, I'm really excited to share your story and seeing people's reactions about these photos. Everyone's minds are gonna be blown, because my mind took a while to figure it out. So do you want to start with the story of Laura Massey and what went on with these photos?
These are incredible, guys. These are bizarre.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put them on as well, so everyone will
Yeah,
see.
brilliant. It's bizarre. Make sure it's a big picture.
I'll give a backdrop to this. So in about 2016, I was eating some pastry and I nearly choked. I couldn't breathe. And eventually I was okay. Went on to have a chat with Andrew, and he said, you've got a soul shard coming in. So I then had a number of very mystical experiences related to that. I went through some intense healing as well. And I saw the soul shard was a young girl on the wall in front of me when I was in bed. I since learnt, of course, through all my training, that I was drawing the picture myself with my third eye, because it's a projector. And I saw this young girl sat in her pram under an apple tree. Well, I used to go in a pram under the apple tree when I was very small. And apparently this soul shard of mine nearly died of... no, she did die. She died when she was very young of pneumonia and bronchitis. And this time she needed to be healed. And at the time I was very ill, and I was in my light worker mode and trying to cure myself without going to the doctors. So Andrew dispatched me to the doctors the next day, and lo and behold, I had bronchitis and pneumonia. Anyway, so I got better, and Andrew had said, nurture this soul shard, this baby, because this time she needs to live. So behave like you're pregnant and do all the right things and eat well and have a rest and spirituality and so on. So a few days later I was messing around. I think someone had knitted me a hat, and I was trying the hat on, and my partner at the time was taking photos of me. And
Tell me when you want me to bring the photo on.
Yeah, put the
Yeah,
photos
are you ready,
on now,
guys?
because you can see 2 photos of me where my head. These haven't been photoshopped.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
they look
That's a
like
little
they're-
cocked over.
Well, hang on,
What?
So,
Right
do,
really,
do you want to
really
explain
study
what's
it.
going on then, Laura? So, what did the camera
Right.
pick up?
So the camera has picked up my residual image as the soul shard finally came in through my throat chakra, where obviously it was I'd had that cough, and it had come in so hard and fast. Andrew said it was like a car going into a garage at about 50 miles an hour. So what it had done is actually moved my residual image, and just by, we know it's synchronicity now, and my partner at the time didn't believe in any of this, but he took 2 photos which show just what happened when the rest of the soul shard came in.
Oh my
Everyone's
god.
face. It took me a while for my brain to
The shard was just as surprised as you were.
If you actually, if you look at it and you see she's got 2 sets of arms, 2 arms that go above her head and then 2 arms that come down from her shoulders. And if you look at where her shoulders are leading up to the upper arms, you can actually see the light that connects them to the shoulders.
Oh wow, you do.
Yeah, you can,
Yeah.
the residual,
I
yeah.
see that. Whoa.
How cool are they?
So I thought I had some really,
That.
really cool photos and sent them to Andrew, and he said, yeah, I see stuff like that all the time. It's like, oh.
That's amazing. I love it.
But still, for me, it was, I didn't know it was all connected. And of course, when I realised that the shard actually came in at the throat chakra, of course it did, and it was triggered by this the piece of pastry I got caught, and then the photos caught it as well. So maybe not so much a mystery now, but I mean still an incredible and yes, life-changing experience that was, and to actually have the photos was obviously meant to be for a teaching for my future self.
Holy crap.
bleed through of what the fuck from the unseen world to this world. A what the fuck moment.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm here. Believe it.
Yes. Yeah. I couldn't believe it when I saw the photos.
Wow. Has anybody got any questions for Laura about that
I'm
incredible
still processing.
event?
Yes.
I
The
mean,
fact that she's so happy
Loading.
is great as well. Like if she was really miserable or looked frightened, it'd be different. The fact that she's got such a big smile as well just makes it.
Yes.
She's like, I'm here.
Wow.
And hello, Lana. Welcome to the
Hi,
show.
Anna.
Hello, everybody. Thanks
Hi.
for letting me in your little chat room here and your little room. So, as I was listening to you guys talking about the birds and things like that, and I was trying to remember, did I have had any experiences with nature like that? And it dawned on me that I remembered before I got to doing revocations and things like that. This was maybe a year or so before. It was during the springtime. I remember because our crabapple tree was blooming. It had pink all over the tree. But what I recall, I was one morning I was looking out the window, and I saw 3 woodpeckers outside in the backyard, and they were not on any of the trees pecking away or anything like that. They were on the ground, and I'm like, why are these birds on the ground just pecking away like this? But they were not in our yard. Now our yard and our neighbor's yard are joined together, but without a fence, so we can move back and forth into each other's yard. And I remember the woodpeckers, they were just on the ground, just pecking away. But something I did notice that they never crossed that imaginary line between our yard and the neighbor's yard. And they would be there for a few hours and then they would disappear. And then the next day I saw them again, and they were doing the same exact thing on the ground in the same space as the day before, never crossing that imaginary line again. And this was something I was kind of like wondering about. Like, what the heck is going on here? Why are they not coming into our yard, but they're just remaining in the neighbor's yard, never crossing that imaginary line? And then a third day, the same thing happened. And I'm like, what the heck's going on? Why are these birds here every single day? And they're not on the trees, they're woodpeckers. They usually are up on the trees and they're pecking away like crazy. And then again, I remember not seeing so many at the same time. It's usually one you'll see, or you'll see maybe two the most, but never like three or more. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I realized a few days later what was happening here. What actually I figured out that went on was that my neighbor, he was an elderly gentleman, he had fell down the stairs and he had hurt himself badly. And so he was in the hospital at the time. And then he got transferred to a different hospital. And when he got transferred to the other hospital, he never made it back home. He passed on. And I realized that the birds were there until the day that the gentleman passed on and then left and never came back. And I got to thinking, oh my goodness, this must have been his ancestors that came and they were holding a space down here for him or they were bringing some kind of message. And I thought, oh wow, this is pretty interesting for me to make this correlation with the gentleman passing on and these woodpeckers, because it was quite so unusual for me to see this happen. But for me, this was the mystical, magical moment that only I got to see and realize what was happening. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because it reminded me talking about all the birds and things like that. So thank you.
That's awesome. Were you ever able to decipher the message of the woodpeckers? What they were saying?
No, I didn't look into it any further. I just realized that they were possibly his ancestors that came to receive him. You know,
Yeah.
that's why they were sticking around, because he was in the hospital for several days, maybe like a period of 2 weeks, and then he just passed on.
Beautiful.
So
Incredible. And
Beautiful.
woodpeckers are great in psychic surgery as well, like pecking out darkness and clearing entities out, pecking the shit out of them and getting them out.
Maybe
Very
they were
powerful
getting
animal,
ready.
total woodpecker. I'd love
You
to
know-
have them around here.
when they were there, I was like wondering if they were there to bring me a message or something. But then I realized that these birds never crossed the border, the imaginary borderline of our yard and our neighbor's yard, because there was no fence there. And that was the interesting part, you know. It's like they stayed over there and they were just hanging around in the yard in that one spot there. So I thought that was so fascinating.
Maybe
That's
there
like
was some
animals read,
density.
Sorry,
Say
Maybe
again?
there was. You want me to go, Laura?
you go, done it. Yeah.
Okay.
You go, baby. You go, baby.
I was just gonna say maybe they were pecking out some of that density that was, on the land that, the man could have possibly had. Maybe that's why they didn't cross over, because your spot was okay.
Hey,
They had
that
to
could
clear
be,
some stuff before he crossed over.
yeah.
I think
Anything
they're
is
very good at
possible.
reading energetic borders, animals, aren't they? Because I had a fire
Yeah.
in the corner of my son's garden once because I couldn't have it home for some reason, and it was fine. And then a couple of days later, he called me and he said the dog won't go near that corner where you had the fire. What witchy stuff have you done, Mum? The dog won't go near it. It gives it a wide berth. So I thought, I don't know. So of course I asked the man who knows, and he said no. The dog Cheddar, the dog was just respecting the sacred space that you had set up. He was doing it out of respect. He wasn't fearful at all. You just set up sacred space, and he was just respecting it. Like, wow.
Wow.
Wish the kids would do that.
Yeah.
I wish, yes. When you put the crystal grids down and I'm looking for one, I'm like, where the fuck is it? Standard story that.
In my house.
So,
Wow.
just a couple of questions in the chat. Michelle, did you feel anything to the head, Laura? No, I just felt nothing. I didn't know. Didn't know the photo was going to turn out like that. Or...
Was there anything that you had to work through after you integrated that aspect of yourself, Laura?
Yeah, the light worker, don't go to the doctors. The light worker, I think I can heal myself thing.
Yeah.
And just learning to love myself, all the basic lessons, and yeah, treat it like it was, which it was, the young child soul shard. Yeah, and it was an incredible experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. Sometimes we forget those basic things that seems like they're the most important things, is those basics.
Absolutely, yeah.
Loving yourself, being patient, having your heart open, taking time off, all things that we forget to do sometimes.
Well, that's why Andrew says he's grand master of the obvious, because they are obvious things, aren't they? When you look
Yes.
back, even with the shard coming, the pastry crumb was it's coming in at the throat chakra. Well, of course, when you look back, it seems sort of quite obvious. Something was happening.
Incredible. So, has anybody got any more stories? Martina, have you got any more stories for us of any mystical experiences?
Yeah, I have something. I just want to ask a question with regards to soul integration, because we often talk about, looking at these pictures now, it looks like the shard is coming into the physical body. But then we also talk about the soul is actually, the body is in the soul, not the soul is not in the body. Or we also talk about just the flow of consciousness, of an awareness, where everything is just in alliance, collaborating and working together. So how does it actually really work from your experiences in terms of when we talk about integration? What really happens?
I could answer that from my experience. Do you want to take it down?
No, go ahead, bro.
So, for me, I see it as it's all different frequencies of light, and sometimes it's about, some of them have to come in, so it's just whoop, and it is just like a I don't know, how do I describe it? All I can say is light. So it just comes in as light, but it's like at an atomic level as well, and there's encoding in it, and some integration is done instantly, like what you see with Laura, where something just slams in, it needs to be in. Other things, they'll come in and out, they might not go in properly. That's the best I can describe it. It's just light that's integrating into our system.
Yeah.
That's like really simply put.
I know in terms of the etheric body, there's been studies with plants that the energy field will actually take shape before the physical comes into play. So I would guess that it would be something like that. It comes in energetically before it solidifies.
There's multiple
in the
dimensions
physical.
all overlaid over one another. Many dimensions all overlaid, different times and spaces all overlaid over one space.
And do we know when the soul shards are coming in? Do we know that?
Sometimes you won't, but as you progress, you'll notice it, and then you can work with it, or even call it in.
And you've done that many times in your psychic surgery sessions as well, Amy.
Yes.
Those are soul shards you bring it back, yeah.
It is so interesting when I do it. It's just there. Yeah, like Maddie says, I can't even describe how I do it, but when I do it on somebody, they do feel that go in somehow, from what they tell me.
And that's it. It's allowing as well, like even in energetic settings or sessions, is understanding the ancestors and our lineage. We have many different ancestors and psychic surgeons who want to work with us in co-creation to bring these soul shards back. And they absolutely love it when you ask them to help you bring these soul shards back. Yeah. They'll run everywhere and be like, "Yep, we'll go get it." Finally, yeah. we can have that moment.
I have to tell you the magical thing that happened when I was working on my friend. I don't know, Dale, if this ever happened to you, but I brought a soul shard in from her, and it wanted to go. I was crying when it came into me, and it was the softest. It was like the softest soul shard ever. That I've never felt anything like that, and I was just like, I'm gonna say polishing, but like clearing it, and I just start sobbing, and it wanted to go in her feet.
It was an emotional shard. It was emotion.
Oh, okay.
And that crying was the soul remembering.
But am I? Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Okay. I didn't know if I was, like how we're supposed to separate ourselves from our client. Was I not separating myself because I was feeling an emotion? Was I feeling her emotion?
You get healing back. Every healing you give, you get a healing back. So you get giving something back. And sometimes I'll do a healing on a person, and then when I walk away, I'll have all the ancestors of that person come and give me a healing. And it's not done all, it's kind of because you've brought resolution to them, and they say you don't understand what's just happened there. Sometimes you can hear them all having a talk behind the scene, and then they'll come to some sort of like agreement, and then and then thousands of people look at you at one moment and say thank you. So it's what we get for the good work.
Yes, bro. Okay. Did you cry when you were doing this for a client then?
I did.
Yeah. When you're crying in a psychic surgery session, any energetic session, it means you are very advanced in energy healing. You're in the moment of the client. You're in the moment of the space, and you're so in the moment with the synchronicity with the client. You're sharing that unique space, and the tears just confirm of how great you are as an energy healer. So it's one of the biggest forms of and congratulations, you're doing fucking really well when you cry when you're in a client setting. I cried was it a few weeks ago? There was a lady, and I did 2 sessions with her, and towards the end I would just burst out in tears, and she burst out in tears at the same time as me. And I was like, I couldn't speak. I was like, fuck, I can't speak. Yeah. And she was there crying as well, and I was crying, and I was just like, wow. I was like, so it's great. It's a universe telling you you're a fucking incredible healer.
Yeah, that's a super honest moment, man. That's a beautiful, beautiful moment.
It felt so, I can still feel that moment, like now, still. That soul shard was just so soft. It just felt so beautiful. I didn't feel it on the other 2 that they gave me, but that one for some reason was just an incredible feeling. Yeah.
Beautiful. Anything you want to add, Martina, with the soul shard? What's your take on soul shards, Martina?
I don't look at it from any separation perspective. I just look at it as a big conglomerate of as a consciousness, and it all integrates into that level, into that not sea of consciousness, but that sort of that consciousness, whatever that is, defined as that person. So when I do that work, I never distinguish between. And this is when I see those pictures, Laura's pictures, like, wow, I've never seen anything like that, because I've never seen it really come into the body and distort the body almost, when the etheric body with the physical merges as such, because but it's fascinating, and I think it's a big topic now, because as we are starting to synthesize those bodies, that kind of shit's going to happen more and more. Literally, as we're going through those upgrades, as our features are changing. And I think it has to integrate, because otherwise our features wouldn't change, right? And I think also, lots of people, and I've seen this myself, is that they're actually gaining weight, interestingly enough, when they have soul shards integrate. And I've looked at that, if that is just a limiting viewpoint, or that can actually be changed, or is it a matter of the body really protecting, putting on a little bit more weight, especially now with the gravity changing and everything, to stabilize the body in order to allow that integration, that kind of thing. So I think this is something we'll have to look after ourselves, see what happens, because it can be quite scary when we start. It's almost like this shape-shifting that's going on in a way, so yeah.
And you have to make sure you're getting the right proteins and so forth. I agree, because I have actually noticed, now that you say that when I'm going through moments of intense change, I need a lot more. But obviously you could choose to eat stuff that's not good for you, which aids the negative parts of the unseen, or the stuff that is good for you, which will aid the positive parts of the unseen.
Yeah.
It does come back to responsibility, doesn't it? But absolutely, I reckon it is connected. And it is like what you were trying to describe as well, it is like a hologram, isn't it? It's like all those other parts are pieces and parts of you, and it's like a codex. And through the experience, we unlock the codex, or, I don't know, access higher levels of it. It almost looks like a hologram is the best way I can describe it.
That's actually a good way of saying it, a solidification of a hologram, isn't it? Of an amalgamation
exactly
of
that.
all the holograms. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And going back to the weight, Martina, where you talked about the extra weight, was there that scientific study? I'm not sure who it was by, but someone said it on a show, one of the shows, that they measured the weight of someone just as they died straight away, and the weight changed completely when the spirit was out the body. We talked about that on another show before. So that makes sense, doesn't it, with the weight and gaining, and the spirit must have some sort of kind of weight
The shard
to
has
it.
mass. Yeah, the shard has mass.
So if someone says to me, you put on weight, I'm going to say, oh, yeah, well, I've just had a
Shard integration.
I just had a shard sandwich.
It's not a cake.
Yeah.
I think it's also the body, the physical body protecting itself. It's a bit of a panic situation where the body doesn't know what's going on with all those energetic changes, and then adds weight in order to stabilize it, and to protect itself. Probably,
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's too many beers, could be too. Anything, just any excuses we're trying to find.
Lily, do you want to add
When you're,
anything to that?
I was just going to say, when you're brewing spirits, isn't there something called the angels share when you're brewing whiskey, and it's like an amount that just disappears into the ether? I don't know if anyone knew anything more about that.
Yes, I've heard that. Yes, I've heard that. Yeah.
Wow.
I have never heard that.
So another thing I can add, which was quite significant for me, quite interesting. In 2014, I was in an Access Consciousness class in London. And the way those classes worked, people just came to the microphone and started talking and asking questions. And there was one Eastern European lady. She walked up to the microphone and started talking about her being a walk-in. And I hadn't really looked into the walk-in phenomena before or anything like that. I think I might have read one book, but wasn't really interested in that. And as this chick was talking, I had such a tremendous reaction. My heart was like pumping. My tears were streaming down. I thought, what the hell is going on here? As she was talking. So there was this physical reaction of saying, okay, it's time for you to look at that. And I I walked up to the facilitator afterwards and I said, well, I don't know what the hell was that. I just looked at him and I said, is it possible that I'm a walk-in too? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, I was like, and again, I started crying because the kind of guy that was, and just total clarity. And I said, oh, well, your life is going to get easier now. And I think, okay. So that was in March 2014. And then I had, and then I forgot about it again. Didn't really think about it a lot. And then I had my first session with AB, and I asked him. I said, "Am I walking?" And it took him a little bit to scratch, through the Akash, and he said, "Yes, you are." So that was the second time that it was confirmed, but it was mainly the physical reaction of my body that alerted me to the possibility.
Wow.
And what does it feel for you, like with memories, with when you were younger and everything? Because the walking takes on the memories and everything. What does it feel like for you? Did you feel like there was just something you could try to pinpoint, which you couldn't there was something, not, I wouldn't say missing is the right word, but was there a feeling, a knowingness that something didn't add up? And that kind of, when you knew there was a walk in there, that kind of gave you the validation to like, wow, it makes all sense now.
This is the thing. There are stories out there about walk-ins, but it's such an individual occurrence when it happens, and also for me, I would have never thought I was a functioning walk-in from the very beginning. Having said that, I mean, I went through so much shit when I was young that, I couldn't even make a distinction. Was this now, so many situations where, it could have happened and things. I do not remember a lot of my years before, let's say before 10, that kind of thing. But also my walk-in it came in dream time. So it was during a dream time. It was a dream time exchange. So it doesn't have to be a walk-in, doesn't have to be like you falling off a horse or having an accident and then don't remember and become a completely different person. So for me, it was a dream time exchange. And also the thing was that I had 2 soul factions within me for quite a few years. So the soul walked in when I was around 14, and then the host soul walked out when I was already in my adolescence. So I had 2. And this accounts for, probably all the shit that was going on around that time in my life, But, I've never really considered myself any different or anything than anyone else who's been going through a lot of stuff, with that. But this is why I was so surprised when I had that reaction, because otherwise I would have probably never even looked at that.
And it's incredible, really, what the walking takes on, all of the memories, all of the experience, like the residual memories in there. I remember actually, it reminded me of around about 2 months ago, there was a lady who Andrew messaged me on an evening and asked me if I wanted to come in and do psychic surgery in a session with him. And we ended up doing it for around about 2 hours. And this lady was a walking, but this lady was abused so much that she was the only one who would agree to come into the body because it was that nasty, the experience. And she was such a powerful spiritual warrior to be able to come from that world and go into that body, and going into the past and seeing the memories and seeing how she was just a bit scrambled by it all. And when that knowingness came, where Andrew said you're a walk-in, this is why it doesn't all add up to you. Like, she's like, I remember it, but it just doesn't feel like my full memories. So it's just so interesting and compact that how individual everyone brings different things, different experiences to the table. And this is why these shows are created, for people like Martina, Lily, everyone here to be able to share their story and for us to listen. Really cool. Has anybody got any questions for Martina at all about that?
Yeah, I have a question, either for you or Martina. Being a walk-in, are you responsible for everything that happened before you came in?
Yes, because you're taking over the contracts of the host soul. So you have to take over your contracts, you bring your contracts in, and you take over the contracts. And also the thing is, I was detected in Dreamtime. I was detected by the system of domination and control that I can create a unity field where people, just come into unity, and that was considered a problem, because they saw me on shows, they saw me on stage and that kind of thing. And the interesting thing, it's actually not about the soul necessarily, it's about the skin suit. They wanted to eradicate the skin suit. Yeah. Because remember, we have all those soul codes and everything in the body itself. So this was that. And then, they also tried the soul. They wanted to get my old soul. I had to get out quickly, but that would not have been a good thing for me, because the old soul still had to complete a couple of things for the soul, for the old soul, for the host soul to carry on afterwards, So this is why I had two souls with me for quite a few years until the host soul really left. But everything has to be taken over by the other soul.
Laura's just sent me this over, Martina, and I don't know why it's blurry, but there is a walking only just above her. I don't know why it's blurry. Let me just try and get
fine. Don't worry about it.
That's a funny moment, wasn't it, Martina and Arundel?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Walk-ins only.
That's great.
So that's probably definitely added to your ability to tap into the Akashic record, to perform surgeries and all the things you do, being a walk-in, having to clear the old contracts and bring in the new contracts.
The only thing I would say is that I do so much without knowing that I'm doing it. So I always work backwards a lot. I hear things, talk about it, and thinking, oh, I've been doing that, but I haven't acknowledged that. So there's a lot of things that I need to acknowledge. And I'm not the only one. Lots of us, have to acknowledge things that we're already doing. So that's something. And yes, I mean, there was a lot of turmoil and hardship and that kind of thing. But I think what it really helped for me was it has helped me to have a good pattern recognition. And polarity and contrast is my bread and butter. I can't get enough of it. It doesn't, in the beginning, it was never an issue for me to work with the contrast and to analyze it and everything.
Yeah, I'd imagine that it would definitely be some serious training in opening the heart to be able to feel through things that you didn't necessarily experience physically.
I've used a lot of my intellectual capacity, not to be mistaken by academia, but intellectual faculty is the choice faculty, where we go into analysis, but not analysis paralysis, but really try to get out of the emotional faculty, which we're born into through all this domination and control bullshit and all the programming, and really let go of the programming so that we can start intellectualizing what is actually going on. And once you can intellectualize and understand the journey from our body to soul journey, then I think the heart opening comes automatically. And this is the journey that I'm seeing, and that's the journey that I'm working with, is to get out of the, highly turmoil, emotional stuff into more switching on our mental capacity. And that's not to be misunderstood with concrete mind and just being mental, but really understand what's going on, taking the mysticism out of it. Because once you take it all out, it's actually normal. These are the capacities that we have. It's perfectly normal, but we've just been indoctrinated for so long that we are those little tiny small
beings and we have no capacities and we are not supposed to be bilocating or transliterating or all of that is coming through now. We can work so much with time and space but beyond it at the same time.
I'm so glad you said that, Martina, because that corresponds to when I was thinking about this show and about what possibly I could say. We do live the mystical life daily, and there are so many things that happen on a daily basis, if not weekly basis, that would seem completely mystical and extraordinary to some people, but over the years they just become as mundane as anything else, just like breakfast, or you have the experience and you think, oh, that was pretty cool, and you log it down and then you move on. You still got to go work or do anything you've got to do. So it is just, and it does become that, doesn't it? It's just an ordinary part of life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think Lily said it, it's that, the mundane, the ordinary, once you get to that understanding that this is actually, nothing is really mystical, it's just magically beautiful or mystically beautiful. And then you can actually go back and really enjoy the ordinary. And the ordinary becomes much more magical than, the huge ideas of having to meet aliens or, that kind of thing.
Right. Oh, yes, Martina. I so agree.
Yeah.
I so agree.
Even though aliens are cool. One of my favorite topics.
Aliens are cool, but the brutally honest truth about it, if they did come down, 99% of us wouldn't be ready for it, and we'd probably end up dead.
Nope.
Our minds would just go bang.
Yeah.
So that's what really cool stuff, Martina. Incredible, and yes,
well said.
It's walking that line, isn't it? And walking in the 3D, but still enjoying the 3D, enjoying the spirit world, enjoying having a lunch with friends, enjoy going to the cinema. Mm-hmm. Those things are so valuable because through a blink of an eye, we'll look back at this, say in 500 years from now, and we'll go, wow, that experience was so unique, and we won't have that experience again because of the great changes all the time of the universe. So it's about really appreciating every day for how it comes. Every morning when we rise and see our family and friends around us, how special that is to us. Because when we do cross over to the blue road of spirit, we'll look back and realize how fucking incredible this life is, really. Mm-hmm. If we choose to see it that way anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well
What
said.
we're
I
doing
love
really is, in
Beautiful.
all of this, is we're co-creating with the universe, aren't we? Or co-creating with great mystery and great spirit. Right down to the synchronicities and all the wonderful so-called mystical stuff that's happening to us, and it's the co-creation with the universe which actually makes it quite magical.
Yes. I get chills.
Absolutely.
I get chills.
Inspiring. And
It
who
is.
would like, Lana, how are you doing in the background? Quiet, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. I'm just listening to all the good stories and enjoying. It's a good show. Good topic today. Really enjoying it.
I think the other thing too is when you ask, look for answers too from the universe or whatever your belief is. But you can ask and you will get the answers. You'll get it in someone else's conversation that you overhear.
Yes.
I've had that, and the person in the conversation was called Laura, and it gave me
Yes.
That's
right.
Yeah, and it's like, so my ears pricked up, and it's like, oh, okay, and I got the answer to a question.
Well, can I share?
It works.
Yeah, can I just share something that I find so many mystical things. I think if I wrote about everything, I should actually jot them down. My journals would be filled. But so I have an altar that I keep, and I put coffee on it in the morning, and I do like a little ceremonial tobacco with it. I smoke it up, just kind of like singe it, and give him some food. Yeah, so I go back in the evening, and the cream from the coffee, because they like a lot of cream and sugar, there's a message in that cream. It was like one day it looked like a sun. Like I something just said, look at the cream before you dump this out, and I dump it outside. I go outside and I don't put it down the drain, but like all these little things, it's like, oh my God, that is very mystical to me. Like that just excites me. These little things excite me.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
there is messages in it too.
Yeah.
There's actually, in some cultures they used to drink tea, and whenever the tea was gone, they would dump the leaves out on the plate, and they would be able to, read just from the leaves of the tea. So there is a message in
Yes,
there
there
for you.
is. There was one looked like an ocean wave. I don't know, just like it's just so, I don't know, magical. Once you open your heart and up into, a believing, just trust and believing and the courage to believe it, and it just opens your world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that process goes on and on and on and on and on, never ending. Eventually you'll
Yeah.
be flying through the universe in midday and then making lunch for the kids or the grandkids or whatever by 3.
Taking a
Like it's
soul
nothing.
shot after lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it.
So there's another thing which time, obviously, starting to go a bit, weird, and we are perceiving it differently and stuff like that. And there's a little trick I've learned through with Access we can play with, and it works. It's been working. I went to town the other day in a cab, and it was super busy to get over the bridge, and our meeting was at 10. And the friend of mine, we were both in the cab, and she said, "We're not going to make it." I said, "Let's just fold space." And she said, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Look, let's just fold space, and we're going to arrive there 5 minutes to 10. And she said, "Well, it's never going to be possible because, it's already like 10 to." I said, "Let's just play. Let's fold space, right?" And we arrived 5 minutes to 10. Because as we know, time is an illusion, right? So this is something we can start playing with, no longer be dependent on time. And as soon as you get out of this identification with anything, really, you get out of the form, out of structure, out of concentricity, out of all of that, things just start to happen in a different way. So this is something we can all start playing with time,
Mm-hmm.
It is a game.
Yeah.
And
You
time
have that,
portals.
don't you? Yes. When you go to a meeting and for some reason you feel like you do bend it and you get there on time or for work or wherever you're going, that mystical experience of you going and bending and not applying the rule set to the Roman numeral time. I love those. Like an hour goes fast, an hour, but if it goes really slow or the other way around, it's incredible seeing those.
Where we live, it's really, really rural, and we haven't got any light pollution. And when we first moved here, our perception of time just completely changed because we had no society around us telling us when to wake up, when to go to sleep. So we're just going from the sun, we don't have clocks in the house really. So that days stretch for weeks, and then sometimes days are 10 minutes long, and it's absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing experience. Totally out of the construct of time that is formed for us in towns and cities and things. So it's been a cool experience.
No, that's fabulous.
I love that.
Beautiful. And I would like to quickly share as well a story which I just reminded of. With my wife Gabrielle, around about 8 years ago, I think it was, we went for a walk in the park, and we used to sometimes go out at night, look at the stars. And I went to Harrogate, a place called Sainsbury's, and I looked up in the sky, and there was a star, and we both looked at the star, and we was drawn for looking at it for about 10 minutes, just looking at the same star. And it opened up, so it went from a star and it opened into 2. Then all of a sudden you saw 100 different crafts coming in and out of it.
Cool.
So it was disguised as a star, but I didn't believe it. There was something about it where I was just like, I don't fully believe you're a star, because there's something about it which grabbed my attention, and it just molded into separation. And it was a mothership with hundreds of different ships coming in and out. and that was fucking phenomenal. I wasn't
sounds-
drunk, I wasn't anything. She saw exactly the same as me. I was like, you seen this shit? It's like, you get a camera out and it just looks shit, you can't see it, like the standard photo of the sky when you try and take a picture of the full moon and it just looks shit. It looks so beautiful with the eye, but you get your phone out, you're like, oh fuck.
I've had so many experiences with ETs. It just seems to be like ever since I was a kid, ever since and so many, but they appear like the Octorians are quite a funny one, because and they used to appear out the back of my bathroom and like in the night time, just a big giant orb in the back garden. I've had ships come down and land and flash lights. Spooky, creepy stuff. Some of it. I've had things where I've been laying in bed, and then all of a sudden it's like when you're half asleep, and I could feel all of my atoms just start vibrating. So my whole body's like an earthquake, and then just passing through the ceiling, or then passing back down through the ceiling, and then dropping onto the bed like that, or waking up feeling like I've been shagging all night. That's another one. Completely empty, feel like blue balled and sore. You know? And all I've done is just go to bed. Yeah, freaky stuff and all kinds of weird stuff. And when they actually kind of land and stuff, then like it twists your reality. It changes. It's almost like you feel like you're going to dissolve, or you just can't take it. It's like a flight or fight response that you can't quite fight, if that makes sense. There's got to be a build up and a lead up. And if ever you meet them out and about in the street, it's always in a mystical sense, so that everything becomes dreamlike. And then they might be able to like walk past you twice or appear in 3 places, you know, things like that. So it becomes very dreamlike. It's not quite. It's like, hi, I'm Bob. Let's go and fly my spaceship. Yeah.
Has anybody got any? That's incredible, brother. I love those stories.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. Has anybody else got any stories of UFOs? So we've got about 10 minutes left of the show, guys. So has anybody got any UFOs or mystical stories of the stars?
No.
I just quite like to ask Matty, like, what have you learned from those experiences? Like, what have you gained in your like personal life from those incredible experiences of?
Well, it all ties in with each other. I mean, obviously, they always leave you with a shadow of doubt. There's always a what if? Yeah, it's part of the human psyche. So it blends in with your mystical journey. It's dependent on your DNA, what kind of DNA you have, as to which kind of contact that you have. There are other factors as well, but some people will be more negatively orientated. Whereas for me, I've built deep, lasting friendships, but they happen in the dream world as well as in my everyday awareness.
Yeah.
You know, my psychic skills that are pretty much ever present. Just choose to use them or not. And then, you know, dream world, all the other bits and bobs. So it just over the years, just create real bonds and friendships with them. And then there's sometimes where the ships come over or things like that, where it's just a little. Sometimes there's not much depth behind it. It's just narrative changing. You're living in a completely different reality to the one that's subscribed to everybody else. I've been standing there while an armada comes over, you know, and no one else is looking. Cars fly everywhere, people walking up and down the street, not one person paying attention. This whole armada of different ships is coming up and flying and yeah.
Wow. It's interesting now that it's coming into the news, isn't it? They're trying to like sprinkle it into I don't know what's going on, but
yeah, it's all kinds of stuff that happens. And oh gosh, we haven't really got time, I don't think. Otherwise I'm just be waffling on. I could talk about this subject
You can
a
waffle,
lot.
go ahead.
But the thing is that it's also it's multidimensional. It's not just other beings that they contact. I don't know to explain this properly. They exist within the dream worlds and within the unseen worlds consciously, and there's many other versions of them and whatnot, as is us. But they do it, you know, they do it intentionally. So a lot of contact that I have is not like with physical beings or beings in ships, anything like that. It's almost as just me just sitting here now, and then I'll go into a moment, and because the most recent one I saw, there was light language that I speak. So I was speaking light language, and one of it's very clicky, one of it's very bassy, and then the two different lineages came to me and introduced them. I mean, I know them anyway. I know one of them particularly very well because it's another version of myself from the inner earth. and that's an insectoid. But as they came and they started to speak and I started to understand it more, I was doing it in English. Excuse me, I've got a really dry throat. And then this insectoid one, which I was just having fun, you know, using all the skills, just having fun, speaking the light language, having a conversation. And then I could see the insectoid one came in front of me, and then they showed me all of their planets, that they were unique spawning planets, where they're hives, they're big colonies. And then the whole timeline wars and the genocide, and then how they were raised, and then how certain parts of their lineage were kept in secret. And you can feel the energy in my heart, right? It's making me hard to tell the story. And then all down to like just one master avatar, where I saw that avatar and they said, you've got this DNA. You know, so it's all about rebirth of species. So like what Martina was speaking about, if there are species that are almost eliminated, and it's about the skin suit and the DNA lineage that you have, the DNA within you. And so some of us carrying all kinds of odds and sods that are useful to the universe at large. But with these with these more, I don't know what the word is, but with these other levels of awareness, it always comes resolution. You become aware of things that you weren't aware of, and this is how it grows. But each time you do that, you come to see how more the universe works and how you can resolve it and work with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's not just hocus pocus. There is rhythm and rhyme to it.
Yeah.
Is this how your light language came about?
No, not at all. I've been speaking it since I was a kid, but I didn't realise.
Wow.
But that's the way that they can download lots of information to me. It's only now, the last sort of 6 months, that I've been able to actually now understand what's being said, and then also speak in light language myself, knowing what I'm saying. Yeah.
Wow. Maddie. That's great.
So that started when I was doing a cannabis grow, and I was just working away with all this beautiful cannabis, because it's so magical in itself. That's a real magical spirit, and things used to happen in the grow rooms, you know. And I was working away one day, and it just started. I think I listened to some on YouTube or something, somebody speaking it, and it just started, and it went on for hours. So I was just walking around doing real fast, really rapid, fast light language, just doing that for hours. And it's just activating, and then boom, next day I could speak it like I do now. But now it's a whole different level. But that's only because I've learned and learned and learned.
Oh, I was going to ask you if it progressed. How different has it progressed in what you think it sounds like?
The skill set's still the same.
Okay.
I learned more dialogue. Now I'm much better at certain sounds, and I can make 3 or 4 sounds at once. Almost like beatbox. It's using all the same muscles, the throat, all the way around the teeth, all the different teeth and nose, all different clicks, pops and bass lines. And so I've had to learn the skills, but it was always there, the ability to do it. But it's the actual learning what it is, how it breaks down, how you can fit it in, how you can then use it, in your life every single day to your advantage, but then help other people with it. Other ways is how you can get it to get wisdom that comes in breaking the hologram. So it's fresh, it's information that comes in outside of our hologram. It's literally cracking the hologram of our reality. So it's masterful shamanry, really. Excuse me, I'm gonna have to go and get a drink, guys. I'm really
We've got it available, Matty, on the which I would love to post. I spoke to Laura about it earlier, to post it onto the other page as well. If you go on Two Feathers Medicine on YouTube, you'll be able to see Matty's latest video of light language as well.
Yeah.
I posted that on Earth Nouveau.
Yeah,
it's very very powerful. It's really
it's so good. Wow.
And that light language itself, what he's doing is insectoid light language. So he crosses over from insectoid to lizard light language. And Andrew was, when we were doing our light language, Andrew was telling you where it's from, what it is. It's like insectoid, lizard. I had a Rasta. I've got a Rasta, African, and a Chinese light language which comes in. Laura's is Fey, isn't it? And we do many others, but these are like just some of the things which are coming in.
Wow.
That's like yours, Amy, because mine is similar to yours. Which he said was what, Fey and Celtic.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, thank you for telling me.
Incredible. Wow. What a show.
Wow.
Has anybody got any final anything they want to share before we say goodbye? And I definitely would like to continue this show in maybe a month's time, invite you all back on for part 2, because I feel like we've only just begun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And anybody in the chat who wants a live link, because I know Jenny was on earlier and Reese was there just now. So if you want to come on, I'm not sure how many can we have in Restream. 10. did you
10,
say?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we could take a few more.
And as well, just a thank you for everyone. What an inspiring show, and everyone being able to share their own experiences, and what great teachers you all are. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. That was
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you so
Jose.
much.
Yeah.
Thanks
That
for
was
coming
awesome.
on, guys.
And
Bye.
thank you everyone for watching the Talking Stick Show. And we'll be back next week. I think we'll be back next week. or there might be some
We're not-
new
yes.
plans going ahead,
Yes.
up and coming news very soon about some changes with a few things. But yeah, it's an absolute honour. This is the 82nd show, I think, and each show is just incredible. And for my own learning process as well, to have you all on, and I learned so much from all of you and all of your experiences. And yes, I honour you as ancestors, at Red Road brothers and sisters.
Thank you. We'll be back
Thank you.
Thursday.
Thank you.
Jose.
so much.
Same teaching show
Thank
on
you, Del.
Thursday.
Thank
Yeah.
you, and thank you, Laura.
Thank
Thank you, Matty, and
Thanks,
thank you,
guys.
everyone. And yes, we'll be back on Thursday. The podcast is time to. So we'll be talking about what's going on in the news and dissecting and taking the piss out of it.
That's great.
We already
Love
got a semi-strike from YouTube for the last weekend. Well, not fully strike, but we got a semi-strike.
Naughty boys.
Naughty boys. Incredible. And
Love
there's, that was Joel made as well. Thank you so much, and good night,
Yes, guys.
everyone.
Bye.
Bless
Thank
you all.
you.